Welcome back to Blue Soul Community. If you're new to my channel, I'm Abby, but you can call me Blue. We're here to talk all things metaphysics with the aim to raise the vibrations of the collective consciousness. Today I wanted to just ditch the scripting and ditch the planning and just talk. I wanted to talk about something that many of us go through during the spiritual development process, and that's really quite difficult. It's something that's pretty unavoidable but yet really transformative. It's a really important part of the spiritual development process that most of us go through, if not all of us, and that is going through an isolation phase, the feelings of loneliness, and even levels of loss, whether it's through our friends, our family members, or even the jobs that we work. And even with that loss comes a loss of our identity, a loss of who we are, which is called an ego death. The reason why it's pretty unavoidable is because we are going through this massive internal change, and with this internal change comes letting go of these different habits or these activities or even friends that we surrounded ourselves with to better align our lives with our new interests or our new realizations and clarity. We become more clear and more aware of what is going around in humanity around us, within the society. We become aware of the toxic traits that not only stem from the people around us, but possibly within ourselves as well. It can be really hard to have this realization and this awareness of the ways that we have acted in the past. Maybe we don't quite align with that now, but that's what these isolation phases are really good for. There's several different phases in a spiritual development, and one of them is an isolation phase, and it is very common, and we don't usually have just one of these. It's oftentimes comes in a cycle, but within these isolation phases we tend to have these heightened senses, and some of our other senses tend to open up. And because of these heightened senses, it becomes increasingly more difficult to be in maybe big group settings because you're feeling too much of that energy. It can be difficult to even be in a loud setting, maybe going to a concert, because that energy is just too much for us to handle. One-on-ones can be too much because you're feeling too much of the energy. You're already dealing with heightened senses within yourself, but then to have other people's energies in your own energy field can be really difficult to handle. So we tend to go through these isolation phases to become accustomed to our heightened awareness and our expanded consciousness, because overall that is what's happening inside of us, is our consciousness is expanding and we're creating more room for these different levels of awareness for our environment around us, internally and externally. So with that comes letting go of a lot of things that maybe doesn't serve our higher good anymore. I'll go ahead and speak from experience. So I've gone through many phases of letting people go in my life, all the way from my first notable spiritual awakening, and that was back in 15 years old. And I let go of quite a few friends back then because I felt like I was changing, I was growing and evolving, and the people I was around were not doing so much of that. And it wasn't about me judging them on where they're at. They are on their own journey, but I'm also going through my journey. And if I'm moving along, think about these two paths, and you come together at one point and you're going down the same journey together, but at some point you might take another path. And maybe they're stuck, maybe they found lodging and they just want to hang out here, or maybe they want to go down a different path. That's totally fine. That is a normal relationship. People go through these seasons, it's not like we have to be friends with someone or we have to date this one person the rest of our lives. We go through these seasons of our relationships, and within these seasons, everything comes to an end. But that's fine, that's beautiful, because with that, those doors closing opens up other doors, other possibilities for you to find your real tribe members who can really understand who you are and where you're coming from, because going through a spiritual development process can be very lonely, as I'm sure many of us have already experienced, which is probably why you chose this video today. But it is a very lonely process. In the end, we open these doors to find people that we can really relate with. And some people might be pretty offended, that we want to let them go. And it's important that we let them know that it's not because of them. They're not doing anything wrong, and we're not judging their character. It's only that we are trying to choose to surround ourselves with people that we can relate with or that we can grow with. There's a saying that my mom taught me since I was a teenager, and it's has stuck with me to this day is you are who you surround yourself with. And that's a totally valid motto to live your life by, because you want to be surrounded by people that you can feel inspired by, that you can learn something from, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I do think it's important to let your friends know, if you feel like you need to pull back a little bit to focus on yourself and on your consciousness or your energies, then that's totally fine. But communication is key, so we don't leave people feeling like they weren't enough. Unfortunately, people do tend to get offended by this, but try not to let this get to you. I know that can be difficult, but you're on your own journey, and sometimes people, events, locations, jobs, they can get in the way of your own development. It's not being selfish, it's just looking after your own energy. Your senses heightened and you become more sensitive. You also become more selective on who you allow into your energy field. Because as you become more sensitive, you can become more impressionable in a way. People's energies can influence you, especially if you're more new to the spiritual development processes and you don't quite know your own techniques, because everyone has their own techniques. But if you haven't quite learned your own techniques to protect your energy, it can be really easy to absorb other people's energy. So if you don't surround yourself with the right kind of similar-minded people, you can absorb a lot of that negative energy, and it can be extremely draining. At this phase, you're already in an exhausted state from having these different sensations, and honestly, having these different senses open up. You're starting to feel energies across your body that you might not have ever noticed before, and it can be really overwhelming. Many people don't have vivid dreams, but when they go through spiritual development, they start to have lucid dreams, and you have these different messages coming at you in all these different sources. It's a really overwhelming process. So circling back, we become more selective on who we let into our energy field, and there is nothing wrong with that. So don't let anyone make you feel as if you're doing something wrong, because you're only looking after your own energy. Another reason why we kind of go through an isolation process is because a lot of times we do let go of a lot of habits or activities that we used to surround ourselves with or engage in. So for example, you start to look after your health more, well, then you're likely going to cut out alcohol, or at least substantially decrease the amount that you're consuming. And with cutting out alcohol comes letting go of a lot of activities that you might attend. Now, you don't necessarily have to let go of these activities, but think about a concert. Many of us, I'm sure, when we think about a concert, you have to have alcohol there. So depending on the habits that you're cutting out, you might end up losing friends because of that, because you are usually seeing these friends in these specific settings, and because these settings are associated with maybe bad habits or toxic energies, then you no longer want to be involved with. It's possible that you may lose friends because of that. But that, again, is you are looking for your authentic self in your legitimate tribe members. You're no longer trying to fit into the crowd. You're trying to find your purpose and where you should be in this life. Now, you don't have to follow any guidebooks, any standards, or any societal norms. You're looking for your authentic, true self. And it's totally natural and normal to want to step away and find maybe different hobbies that really make you feel whole inside. So now you have this time to figure out what it is that really pulls at your heartstrings and really courses through your veins and gets you excited to wake up in the morning and do what it is that you love. No matter the path that we may end up losing our friends or family over, just remember that they are also on their own journey. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience. We are all just trying to find happiness in our life. We're trying to find our purpose, and many of us are stuck into these fed agendas to societies, and it keeps us all feeling very depressed and lost. And then we look to materialism to fill those gaps. But if we can let go of a lot of that, we can find true inner peace within ourselves, which can guide us to our higher purpose on this planet. Because guys, we only have one life in this body. We're not here to slave away for these corporations. We're here to find our higher purpose and experience life. But I feel like so many of us aren't really experiencing life. We're waiting for the weekends. We're waiting for the clock to count down. We're not living our lives to our full purpose, to any purpose for a lot of us, and it's depleting. Because as human beings, we are creative souls, and we just want to express that. There's so many different ways of expression of creativity and of love, but we are suppressed and we are itching to break free. We are at this pivotal shift in society right now where we are at extreme exhaustion and we are ready to just explode because we need passion and we need love and we need community. Now, it's really important to note that there are no hacks to becoming enlightened. I don't like to use that word because it's become super new agey, but there are no hacks. Everywhere you look nowadays, it's how to do something quicker, how to skip these steps. You can't skip the steps. You have to do the dirty work. You have to go through trauma healing. You have to learn your shadow. You have to learn your different personalities. And oftentimes you have to go through an ego death. An ego death is really just letting go of who you thought you were and realizing that a lot of your personality, it comes from conditioning. It comes from conditioning of society and conditioning of the experiences that you've been through. And an ego death is letting go of all of that and centering ourselves back to our inner selves and realizing that we are source, we are energy. You know, we are a higher consciousness and we are part of something far bigger than the human species. And letting go of these conditioned parts of our personality, you know, with these personalities we'll have preconceived judgments of other people or entire countries or races. And that all comes from our conditioning. And when you let that go, you find so much truth and so much beauty in so many places that you would have never thought to look, because through your conditioning, you have put up a wall and completely shunned it. You know, and with an ego death, it's really difficult because you kind of feel like you're losing your identity and you're leaving a big part of yourself behind, and everything that you've built up to become this person up to this moment, and now doesn't make sense and you don't relate with it and you're questioning, why was I doing this for so long? Who am I? And you know, it's a really, really hard thing to go through, but you know, once you come through it, you are more light, you have more clarity, you find your purpose in life. You become your authentic self. And now remember, this doesn't happen overnight. Not at all. It's an ongoing process. I went through an ego death about 4 or 5 months ago, and it was a really hard moment in my life. I felt like I really didn't know where to go to next, and it led me to my purpose. And when you go through spiritual development, these different phases, you will find that you just want to dedicate your life to helping others find true happiness, because that's what we're here for, and that's a God-given right, is to be happy and live to our heart's purpose. And it can be really hard sometimes to even function in a society after you've kind of woken up and you don't want to be a part of it, but you're kind of forced to. This is a society that we have manifested, but it takes you know what, we can leave that for another video, because if I start getting into this, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole, and there's just so much to talk about on how we can manifest our realities and literally change society. But we can save that for another video. Some people have this idea in their head that enlightenment is all about rainbows and butterflies, but it's not. It's really not. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering, and you feel the suffering of humanity at a whole. And that can also lead to isolation, and that can lead to the sensitivities, the hyper-awareness and hypersensitivities, because you are connecting with the entire human race. And you end up looking at one person, and you can feel that they represent the entire humanity as a whole. They are not just one person. They are all of us, and we are one. That's overwhelming as heck. And you know, with spiritual development, you're going through these different trauma healing processes. There's a lot that you are going through all the way back to childhood, and it takes a lot of self-analyzation, but a lot of self-acceptance and a lot of self-love. And once you get through to that other side, and I'm going to mention, it's not going to end. This doesn't end after one cycle. I mentioned it at the start of this video, but there's these cycles that happen, and pretty much anyone you'll talk with that's experienced this has also experienced these cycles where, you know, you'll jump between phases, like, oh, I'm in the authentic self phase, but also like you go through phases of isolation, and then you come to these deeper realizations of yourself and in humanity and how you can help humanity, and then you move into like the research phase. You know, there's these different cyclical phases, and you're going to be going through this the rest of your life, but it gets easier as you become more at peace with yourself and with humanity. Things become a lot easier. It takes perseverance, it takes strength, it takes so much courage, but what helps is community and knowing that we're all in this together, we're all having these crazy experiences, and we don't have to go through it alone. And that's why I made this community. That's why I made Blue Soul Community, is because we need a safe place to be able to talk about this, especially because something like spiritual development is something that we really need support on, to be able to share these overwhelming experiences that you can't just Google and find the answers for. We need human to human connection, so with some people that understand what you're going through. And unfortunately, it's something with spiritual development that you can't hardly find these people. It can be really hard to find people to relate with, and that's why we end up losing a lot of friends and family or colleagues or jobs, whatever is in our immediate vicinity. A lot of times that goes and we lose, but we gain so much more. But back to the community, so I wanted to create a place where we can share our experiences and we can relate on these metaphysical topics, on these inner turbulent worlds. Like, there's so much going on, and we can relate anything in our environments to our thoughts, to our subconscious. You know, everything comes back to our subconscious. And that's why I love the subconscious so much. Whatever belief you're looking at, whether it's scientific beliefs or any number of religious beliefs, everything comes back to our subconscious. And so I'm hoping with this community, you know, the more that we can talk about it and the more that we can open up and relate, it can make this process a heck of a lot easier, because we have people that understand, and we have a true support system of members that we feel like could be part of our tribe. If you feel called to, I invite you to join the Blue Soul Community on Facebook through the link in the description. I would love to hear your voice there. If you decide to join, don't feel pressured to share your story or to communicate in the group. You're welcome to sit back and feel the vibe first. It is very new, so you could be one of the first to join, and you can help build this community into something beautiful. I hope this video helped to give some reassurance and maybe some comfort that you aren't alone in what you're going through. There are many people all across the globe that are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing, but in their own interesting and unique ways, which is why it's so fun to talk about this with other people, is because we can relate, but we also have our own experiences. Just remember, you are freaking courageous for going through what you are, and together we can help shift the realities through love and compassion and connection with community. I love you all so much, and if you could please give this video a like, subscribe, and comment so we can help reach other people who might be feeling a little bit lonely today. And go ahead and give one of these other videos a check out. Stay blue, and I will see you over there. Why am I talking about the subconscious? And many of us are stuck in this fed, how do I say this without sounding controversial?